Good afternoon. It's Monday, and it's time for the North Carolina Vinyl Picker Show. I know y'all been waiting. I know. On bated breath, at the edge of your seat. Stop whatever you're doing. Put dinner on hold. Everything. Just waiting for me. But today's show is brought to you by the Early Morning Sunday Show with Steve Carlson. I'll have a little sip here. Woo! That ain't coffee, buddy. Yep, good old Steve. It was nice to meet him down there in Charlotte a week ago Sunday. We had a great time. I think it was Saturday, never mind. And we had a great time and just loved getting up with him and the rest of the people I met there. And it was just a wonderful time. And I hope he gets to come back again soon, or maybe we can meet up in Kentucky or Asheville. Is anybody out there in the VC that sees this would like to do a meetup? There's plenty of stores up by me in the Hickory area, up in Lenore, or I could go to Asheville and meet you over there. Just let me know, time and place, and the North Carolina Vinyl Picker will show up. That's right, Big Chief will be there. So there's one more sip here. I'll get going. Whew. I got 4 records this week. That was all I got, but they're all bangers to me, every one of them. That's what I'm doing lately. I'm getting just the bangers. I got a list. I'm running it down, and these are the stuff I want. Old school. Got a little list. Keep it in my pocket in case I run across an antique mall or a record store on my travels, my daily travels. Then at the end of the show, I'm going to show you my top 10 90's albums. This is what I was listening to in the 90's. I know all people out there listening to hard rock and glam rock and long hair music and punk music and Nirvana and all that stuff. But I'm going to show you what I was listening to in the 90's. And I'm going to run down the top 10 here just in a minute. If you hang loose here for a second. But coming in hot is Total Blank. Yeah, Electric Circus. This is his second album. This came out in 1976. And German. He's German. And he's a guitarist. He's a fusion jazz guitarist. And I believe he was in another band before he went solo. But this is his Electric Circus band. And his first album is called Spider's Dance. And I'm saving up my pennies for that. So if you want to help me out to get that out, go ahead and go to my store. It's in Discogs. Discogs is an app you put on your phone. And you can catalog all your records and your DVDs and whatnot. Big Chief Vinyl 57. There'll be a link below, and you can check me out. And then I have lots of stuff in there for sale, all from mid-century jazz to rock to country, rock, all kinds of stuff. I'm sure you'll find something there because I check Discogs, I see what the prices is, and I put mine at the lowest. Trying to move the stuff out, trying to move it in, bring it in, move it out. So there you go. Total Blank. I'm trying to get Spider's Dance, so help Big Chief get up enough, about $40, so I can get Spider's Dance, and I would make me very happy, Big Chief. Okay, that's number 1. That's a must-have for me. It's been on my list forever. I don't even know if I own that in my first collection of records. Coming in at number 2 this week is GTR. Yes, I've had this album before. This is from 1986. When the Heart Rules the Mind. I know that's a song that everybody out there should know from the 80s if you listen to music in the 80s. This was a failed group. This was with Steve Howe and Steve Hackett. And Steve Howe wanted to make this a long-term commitment, but they went into troubles and they didn't have a good time recording this. There was supposed to be a second album. Steve Hackett released it some years later, parts of it. Steve Howe also did another second album of GTR with a different singer and a different guitar player, I believe. I heard that, and they made a couple of singles off this album. The album sold pretty well, and they went on tour, but they lost money. So I don't know if anybody went to see them. I don't remember seeing them. I never saw them live. And this was on the heels of Steve Howe leaving Asia, and then Steve Hackett having a couple failed albums after his string of his first 4 albums, and he kind of hit a roadblock and made a couple that didn't really sell too well on an off label. and then he hooked up with Howe on this, and it just didn't work out. But there are some good tunes on here. The lead singer on here, I think, is Max Bacon, if I'm not mistaken. Hey, that rhymed. Is it Max Bacon? Yep, it's Max Bacon. I believe he's passed away. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's definitely English. And there's some other people in this band, but it's a good album. It's not a bad album. It's got that 80s synth pop going on. Coming in at number 3 this week, Steve Kahn. Steve Kahn is a jazz guitarist. He's played with all kinds of jazz musicians. Played with Larry Coryell. He's played with a lot of the big names in jazz. This album came out in 1980, and it's his 4th album. And I have the first 3 I bought. Then I saw this one on Discogs, and I said, well, I need to find this one. And one came available really cheap, and I was able to get it with shipping for under $10. So that was a no-brainer. I want to give this a listen. And this album here has got, for you people that are into that mid-century jazz, the first side here has got In a Silent Way. I guess Miles made that, and that was Joe Zolenthal. And the Lee Morgan song on here, Melancholy. A Horace Silver song on here, Peace. Wayne Shorter, Infant Eyes. And then side 2 is Thelonious Monk Medley. And it goes into a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to give this a listen. Steve Kahn is a really, really good jazz fusion guitarist. I'm hoping I'm going to enjoy this as much as I did his first 3 albums. And it'll go in the collection. Coming in at number 4. This came in just today. It's still sealed. This is Mike Mandel. And Mike Mandel played with a lot of jazz artists as well. This album came out in 1978. It has Dave Sanborn on here, or David Sanborn. Daryl Thomas, Gary Anderson. Steve Kahn, which we just talked about, he's on this album. Just the back picture alone, this guy is a jazz fusion keyboardist. Kind of similar in the vein of Jan Hammer, something like that. Mike Mandel, I think he was one and done on this album. I don't think he made another one. But I got this for like $5. It's like $1.50 and then $3.50 for shipping or something. It was crazy. And it's still sealed. So I'm going to give this a listen here just in a few minutes. I don't want to play it in the background. And if you hear the air conditioner in here, it's really hot here in North Carolina today. So sorry for that. Okay. Well, now that's done. I only had 4 this week. I'll try to get 5 next week. I swear I will. Okay, so here we go. Coming in at number 10. These are the number 10 albums of the 90s that I was listening to during the 90s. Some of these bands you'll know, some of you probably won't know, but the ones that you don't know, maybe you'll check out. Coming in at number 10 is IQ. IQ is a band with Peter Nichols. There's a neo-prog band, kind of like in the vein of Marillion. This was their kind of comeback album after they had broke up they didn't break up. They made a couple albums without Peter Nichols. And then he got back with them, and this was their comeback album. And if you're into progressive rock, you should have this album right here. And it's called Ever. And it's IQ. Coming in at number 9. A top 10 band for me as Camel, Dust and Dreams. And Dust and Dreams came out in 91. And Andrew Latimer and company. And this is just a phenomenal album. They did Nude, and then after Nude, I think was Dust and Dreams, right along that same time. Just great stuff. Coming in at number 8, it was the final album from the Moody Blues, and Strange Times. I remember getting this album. It was after, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Ray Thomas is on this, but he died soon after this. He has a couple songs on here. They each have a English Sunset, Haunted. It's a great album. Came out in 1999, and it's a great way to end their career. It's a great album. If you love the Moody Blues and you haven't heard this album, you need to give this a listen. And this is what I was listening to in 1999. I remember buying a CD. We were out buying a generator in Florida, and I was playing this in the car. So I don't know what car it was or what truck it was. Must have been my old red truck. And yeah, I remember buying it that day it came out. Strange Times. Number 8. Everybody wants to know what number 7 is. Well, number 7 is Tori Amos. And this came out in 96. And this was Boys from Pele. This was her 3rd album. I'm doing all these on CDs because I have some of these on albums. But you know what happened in the 1990s? It was all about these little things right here. So here you go. Tori Amos is probably my favorite album of hers. I really like her first 2 albums, Little Earthquakes, and her 2nd album. And then this is Boys from Pele. And then the albums got good after that. There were some really good ones after that too. But this is probably my favorite. This is her 3rd album. And this is what I was listening to in 1990s. Coming in, number 6 is a jazz album. Yep, Pat Metheny. I've been listening to Pat Metheny ever since I was just out of high school, probably. This album is called Secret Story, and this is probably one of my top 5 Pat Metheny albums. It's with his group, and it's just phenomenal. You know, coming in at number 5, this album here, I've been listening to for a long time. This album came out in '91. And it's a band called Egdon Heath, and they're from the Netherlands. I sent a copy of this to the old goat, so I hope he played it. If you're listening, here's the album. Here's the CD right here. And I was telling you need to go ahead and roll one up or have a 6-pack ready and get a little buzz on, and then listen to The Killing Silence by Egdon Heath. This album here is just incredible prog. If you like prog, you'll love this one right here. 1991, The Killing Silence. Coming in at number 4, we're getting down here to the top 10. What I was listening to in the 90s. You're gonna say, man, that guy been listening to some whacked out shit. Okay, this is Engelgard, and the name of this album is Hybris. Now they had a 2nd album that I also have over there on the shelf. These guys here sound a lot like King Crimson, but just more bombastic. And these guys are really cool. Check out that CD. This album came out, I don't know, it was in the 90s. I don't have a date on this thing. But just an awesome prog, epic Engelgard. I'm looking for their album Buried Alive. That's a live album. And then they came out with another one in the 2000s that I don't have. Coming in at number 3, Engelgard was number 4. Coming in at number 3 is Marillion, Afraid of Sunlight. Probably a top 10, or no, top 5, maybe a top 3 Marillion album for me. I love this album. It's got some great songs on here. Afraid of Sunlight is just, it's got King, the song King on here. It's got Beautiful on here. It's got Gazpacho. It's just awesome. It's Marillion at their finest. This album here and Brave, and then they just got better and better as they went on with Mr. Hogarth. Don't forget Marbles. Oh, that's in that same 3 or 4 album span right there. Coming in at number 2, this album here came out in I believe it was '97, and I was down in Orlando, and I think I've told this story before. I was in a Peaches record store, and I saw this album cover, and I said, oh man, I got to get this just by the cover alone. And sometimes, tell me if I'm wrong, make it a little mark down there at the bottom, a comment. If you've been to a store before and bought a record just because of the cover, maybe I'll do a show about that. There's a good idea. I better write that down because the picker might forget. Signify. This is the first time I heard Porcupine Tree in '97. Now they did stuff before this was more psychedelic and whatnot, but I had no idea who these people were until I met this album and got turned on to Steven Wilson, and then followed them up through their career until they broke up with The Incident, and then they've recently got back together, and I couldn't go see them live because I didn't want to travel to Washington, D.C. My favorite band is about. I didn't get to see them, but my friend John saw them. He saw them up in Boston. He said the show was awesome. They were a little bit loud, but they were awesome. Coming in at number 1, there can only be number 1. Number 1? Is that what I said? Yep, it's Pulse. It's Pink Floyd. It's a live show from the Division Bell. They did the whole album, just about a bunch of their. They did the whole album, Dark Side of the Moon, at the end. But they did a lot of their hits, and then they did a lot of songs from the Division Bell, and then they took a break and came back and did the entire Dark Side of the Moon, which was just incredible. And I was with my nephew Peter, and we were in Tampa, and we saw him at the old Sombrero there, where the football stadium. It's a show I'll never forget. We were all the way up in the back with his back speakers, all the way across the stage. And David Gilmour was about this big, maybe this big, and yeah, it was the sound in there was just awesome. And the speaker behind us was dropping the change for money, so that's where the sound for that was coming from, right behind our heads, and it was deafening. It was so loud. But that's it for today. That's all I got. 16 minutes in. We went through the stuff I found this week, which wasn't a lot, but they're all bangers to me. And I went through my top 10 albums of you want any more information about these 10 CDs that I showed, write in the comments section below, and I'll be glad to turn you on to some other bands that are similar to those that I was listening to in the 90s. It was fun going back and going in Discogs and seeing what I was listening to in the 90s. My next one's going to be the 2000s. I did the 70s, I did the 80s. Now I've done the 90s. If you can go back and watch those episodes, I'm going to do the 2000s, but not next week. I got a special show for next week. It's going to be the week after. I'm going to get to that. So everybody be good out there and support those troops. I'll be North Carolina Vinyl Picker will be back next week. So talk to you soon. Bye for now.